So I've started my latest large-scale pastel work. This is again going to be on sanded paper. This is the oil-free, or sorry, the acid-free archival quality paper that I picked up from Blick Art Supply. I've done a quick outline here using my colored pencils. This is mostly so that when I put down the oil pastels, they're not going to pick up the dark gray of a graphite as much, although there is some graphite outlines down here. But this is going to be mostly in a really dark area down here. For this work, I'm going to be using Sennelier oil pastels, and then for the detail work, I'll be using, see if I can get the light on this. I guess I can't. Try this one. Ah, there we go. That one comes out a little bit better. These are going to be the Faber Castell polychromos colored pencils. They're an oil-based colored pencil, so should be the same binder as the oil pastels. Hopefully they'll work together really well. Everything I'm using here is kind of the top professional quality. I'll be working on this with collectors in mind. I've taped this down to my board here. This is to create a half-inch margin all around to make it easier to handle and frame the work. It also will keep the paper from warping while I work on it. To give you an idea of the size, this is 18 by 24 inch. For reference, here's another piece I'm working on just in the regular 9 by 12 size. So it's much larger than my typical 9 by 12, or than the typical 9 by 12 you might do with an oil pastel. So hopefully it'll turn out really nice. Okay, so I'm done with my first night working on the, starting with the oil pastels, bringing some color in. Now, typically my way of, my workflow is to work from backwards to forwards in a scene, going with the background first and then bringing it all forward as I work over time. This just kind of makes it a little easier to layer the foreground objects over the background stuff. So in this, got lots of blues and greens. Started actually though mostly with white, and then just sort of blended things in using my blending stump here. I prefer to use blending stumps for a few reasons. First of all, this is sandpaper, so if I was blending with my finger, eventually my fingers would start to get pretty raw. Also, some of the yellows and whites, I don't know if the oil pastels really have it in there, but with oil paints, some of those would have cadmium in them for the yellows and lead in for the white, some toxic chemicals. I try to avoid touching stuff with my fingers. Hence I use a blending stump. This one's looking pretty nasty here, but you can see all the color on it that I used to or that I've been blending in here. So looking forward to the next night. I'll be working on some large trees here on the sides that will kind of frame the image of the woman and the wolf. So that should be fun. Okay, so I have a few more nights of progress on this work. Mostly been working on trees on either side here. Kind of working with starting with cooler colors for the trees in the background and getting kind of to warmer colors as we get closer to the viewer, I guess. Added some details in. This is some of that colored pencil work, just to add some little branches in here and there, just to kind of give it some detail, but I didn't want too much. But also just kind of make the background jump out a little bit. I decided to add these torches that are just kind of just throwing some random light. I don't know if they make a whole lot of sense story-wise as to why they might be there, but it kind of makes for a neat composition. Also, I'm starting in on the wolf in my next session. One of the things I like to do is start with the eyes, and this is just using colored pencil for this again instead of pastels, just to get in those details. It's just too difficult to do with pastels, so I'll do the eye first and then kind of start working with pastels on the head. A lot of dark colors here, also working with down here. Again, I don't like to use black, so what this here, most of these wider areas of dark color are actually mixtures of, in this case it's a sepia color and then sort of a deep forest green. So I mix them together, you get this super dark brownish color, works as a better black with a little bit more depth. And then that leaves the black for the highlights, or for the details, things like these branches and stuff here. So we'll be starting in on the wolf in the next session. So for today's update, I've added the wolf here, as you can see. This was mostly a white oil pastel base with a little bit of this blue and green kind of cut in. And this is one of the things I like to point out about whenever I do an animal with white fur. It's going to pick up, the white color in the fur is going to pick up colors from the environment. So I'm mirroring the, or echoing the colors here from the trees and the sky in the background, or the fog, or whatever that is. And then, so that's why you kind of see this sort of bluish green here in the fur. Details I've cut in with the polychromos colored pencils. Something that's turning out really nice. More, like I said, I have more detail on the head where I want the focus of the view to be. Whereas when I get down more into the body, it gets a little bit more, less detailed, a bit more blocky, a lot more use of just, instead of colored pencil, of just the little lines of the oiled pastels. So after this, I'm going to get started on the woman here, and I imagine that's going to take me several days. So I should have an update for her when I'm done. So it's been several days now. I've been working on the female character in this scene. Lots of white in here again. So I decided I really like this kind of bluish green color that's sort of also working in the background. So I made her with this sort of cape-like thing that has that, echoes that color. And also her white dress is also picking up some of the background colors. So you see like this sort of greenish type color here, and a lot in the shadows here and whatnot. A lot of detail in this. This was done initially covering it with a white oil pastel and blending in some of the overall grays and greens, and then taking a white colored pencil and cutting in the individual details for a lot of this. Also a black colored pencil for some of the darker shadows here. So all in all, I'm liking the way it's turning out. It's been a great deal of time on her hair, changed the color a few times, kind of landed on this sort of brownish, blondish color in the end. Anyway, what's left now is kind of the sort of foreground. I have kind of put her on some stairs that are kind of working through here in the woods, and some rocks and leaves and stuff. So just kind of finish out that foreground, and hopefully I'll have this done in another week or so. All right, so I've finished this one up. Since I finished the girl, I've added just some rocks and some kind of stairs here, and just some leafy green stuff to kind of fill out the space in the bottom and just sort of push the characters back into the scene a little bit better. Again, trying to come warmer colors as it came forward versus the cooler colors in the background. So yeah, this looks like it's done. What I'm going to do now is let this sit for about a month and kind of have the oil pastels harden up a bit. And then I'll hit this with probably 4 or 5 coats of the fixative. That's the special one made specifically for oil pastels by Sennelier. So that'll make it so that hopefully it can be displayed without being behind glass, and allow the collectors to look at it up close.